Chick-fil-A, remember the boycott of Chick-fil-A when everyone wanted to go to Chick-fil-A because it was what do they call the protest? This was back in 2012. You had the alphabet community that wanted to boycott Chick-fil-A because they found out that Dan Cathy, the guy who owned it, was Christian. And I guess they thought that you was going to get baptized with a sweet tea. I don't know. I just, who knows what people thought. This Jesus chicken. But anyway, everybody went to Chick-fil-A, right? Everybody loved going to Chick-fil-A. Well, now it comes out that they hired a vice president of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that this went out, and then they have a DEI page. Now, the guys, they hired him back in 2020, but apparently it just now spread. News just now spread. They originally released a statement, Chick-fil-A did, back in 2021 to speak about their company mission with DEI and all of this stuff. And the statement that they had was, quote, "We are better together. One of our core values at Chick-fil-A means when we combine our unique backgrounds and experiences with a culture of belonging, we can strengthen the quality of care we deliver. Chick-fil-A Inc.'s commitment to being better at together means embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion in everything we do." Okay, I have a problem with that. That's not a good thing, because equity is not what equality is. And as I've explained before, this is a very Marxist principle. It's critical theory. And at the heart of equity is discrimination, because you have to have discrimination for equity. Equality is against that. So I think, it's disappointing to see this, and I don't know why. Yeah, just be about quality. I have these cane notes. I have these questions too. Why can't you just be like, we serve everybody as we always have with quality? The end. All this DEI stuff is branding of the sheep herd. That's what it is. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't know why we keep having to affirm the same stuff over and over again. But then I was thinking about this too, because, this is Chick-fil-A. This is the entity that, conservatives protested for. And so that statement that I just read to you, that came out in 2021, and a lot of people, I guess, really hadn't known that they have this, Marxist DEI statement, and they were doing all of this stuff. And then it came out. Do you remember? And I remember seeing this right when it first came out, and I thought it was performative. I think that some people genuinely have a heart, and they want to make this demonstration of treating everyone equally, but sometimes it looks pandering and contrived. And it's this video where's this at? It's a flashback video where, which Kathy was it? Who is the Chick-fil-A CEO? He sent out shoe shine packages to store managers to remind them about, contrition and humility, and, to atone for historical participation in slavery. And he was giving this speech, and he got up and was like, started washing the shoes of this other dude on stage. And the other dude on stage did not look humbled. He looked like, wow, this is really, it seemed performative. Listen to this, audio soundbite 9. Flashback.
I invite folks to put some words to action here. And if we need to find somebody that needs to have their shoe shine, we need to just go right on over and shine their shoes. And whether they got tennis shoes on or not, maybe they got sandals on.
This is performative.
It really doesn't matter. But there's a time in which we need to have, some personal action here. Maybe we need to give them a hug too, brother.
And some stock in Chick-fil-A.
But
I got to tell you,
I bought about 1,500 of these.
This kind of goes along with the line. I had a conversation with Max Lucado once, and he was roommates with the pastor at our church. And I always believe in, talking to people privately and going about it, the New Testament way. But I wrote a piece about it at the time. I was upset because Lucado was getting into some of this DEI stuff when he was making remarks during lockdown in his sermons. And it made me angry. And so I called him up. And, we spoke for a bit, and I said, I realize, we come from different generations and we grew up in very different parts of the country. And I explained to him, you have to realize that I don't know what kind of life you've lived or what you've experienced or what other people have experienced because of your actions. But this is, what you're talking about, what people have to atone for. This is kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people in my generation who we didn't pay attention to that because it didn't exist for us. We didn't know differences. We didn't know any of that. It wasn't pushed up on us, and it definitely wasn't weaponized politically and pushed upon us as it is now. And I told him, I said, when you're asking people to assume culpability in something that they had no part in, it creates resentment. And is that not creating a hurdle for other people? And we had a very in-depth conversation, and I get the same feeling watching this stuff. And so I see this, Chick-fil-A made this hire. I do think that this is different than, Bud Light or Target or Kohl's, because they're not, obviously not doing the same thing that they're doing. They're not advertising for the love of all things holy here, tuck swimsuits, good heavens. But it is DEI. And DEI is based in Marxist critical theory. I've written about this for over 10 years. That is a theory based on hatred and division. It is antithetical to Christian teaching. DEI is antithetical to Christianity, period, because it teaches you that there are, it's like the Klan wrote it. It demands that you acknowledge these differences and you live your life accordingly, and that certain people must be given certain things. You have to employ discrimination in order to have equal outcomes. Instead of having a level playing field, everybody gets an opportunity, you might have different outcomes. Different outcomes are not allowed with equity. That's the difference between equity and equality. And it's anti-biblical nonsense. And it kind of shocks me that a company that is so proud about its faith would incorporate something like this as part of their mission statement. And I do think that Chick-fil-A and their CEOs and the Cathy family should absolutely address that. If you're people of faith, I think you should. And I think you have an obligation to, especially since you've made such a public show of it. And I don't think that is in any way a ridiculous demand. Now, to that point, if I was a strategist for Marxist theory, I would want to make my opponents turn on each other. I would want, the Chick-fil-A, for instance, is sort of a avatar brand, if you will, of conservatism, is it not? Isn't that why you had, who is it, Rahm Emanuel, who didn't want a Chick-fil-A in Chicago, saying that their values aren't Chicago values? And I'm like, I guess it's not about gangs and drugs and shooting? I don't know. And you had leaders in New York City say the same thing. In Austin, didn't they try to drive Chick-fil-A out of an airport in Austin? It's Jesus chicken. That's how they look at it. If I were a strategist for Marxist critical theory, for wokery, I would want conservatives to turn on the brands that they identify as being part of them and other people identify as being part of them. I would want to foster a sense of betrayal, knives out, and I would want them to go at each other's throats. Now, I don't know why Chick-fil-A felt the need to do this. I know that they are a privately owned company, but I do know that their banks and suppliers and everything else, they may not be. And ESG is a very real thing, environmental social governance standard. So even if they are a privately owned company, that still plays into this. And I think that if you make conservatives turn on an avatar of their business, then I think that really exceeds the expectations of the Marxists that I think have created this environment to where, in which, Chick-fil-A feels the need to release a statement like this. So I think that we need to be very careful in how we deal with this. This is not the same. I don't think that this is the same thing as, Bud Light. I don't think it's the same thing as Target. I think it's one thing to sell children's clothes with images that affirm adult sexual practices. And I think it's another thing to have a statement like this. Now, I'm not saying I support this at all. Like I just told you I thought it was unchristian. I don't know how harsh I don't know how I can be more harsh in my criticism of it. But I do think that it's entirely different.